You're all very welcome to this presentation from Ifigin Commissioner Tanga, and it relates to the Official Languages Amendment Act 2021. Alt de a Fogriacht Agus Colachli Pibli, Section 10A, Advertising by Public Bodies. It's Mr. Paul Leonard. I am the Banistor Cummerside, the Communications Manager for Ifigin Commissioner Tanga, and I'm delighted to have this opportunity to share with you this presentation on the workings of Section 10A, Advertising by Public Bodies. This has been the culmination of quite a bit of consultation with you, public bodies, and with sectoral bodies as well. So let me start with this presentation. Introduction and context. The Official Languages Amendment Act 2021, enacted in December 2021, strengthens the Official Languages Act 2003. It contains a series of new provisions aimed at strengthening the language rights of Irish speakers. Amongst the provisions of the Official Languages Amendment Act 2021, there is a new statutory obligation for public bodies in relation to advertising, general communications and commercial communications which engage with the public. Section 10A, Advertising by Public Bodies of the Act, places duties on public bodies in relation to the way they communicate in the state's official languages. The advertising sector is a very important communication medium, and accordingly, this new provision is expected to be of considerable importance. The provisions in Section 10A, which are defined as follows, will come into effect on the 10th of October 2022. So this is the legislation as it is presented to us. Advertising by public bodies. 1. A public body shall ensure that A. At least 20% of any advertising placed by the body in any year shall be in Irish, and B. At least 5% of any monies spent on advertising by the body in any year shall be in Irish language through Irish language media. 2. In this context and this section, advertising means A. Any form of commercial communication with the aim or direct or indirect effect of promoting a product or service of the public body concerned, and B. Any form of communication to the public in respect of 1. The recruitment of staff, 2. Legislative or policy initiatives, 3. The purchase or sale of land or assets, 4. The provision of services, or 5. Public consultation. Irish language media means any media where 50% or more of the content of that media is through the Irish language. So we'll extrapolate the legislation with some of these definitions. And for the purposes of implementing and monitoring Section 10A, the following definitions apply. Paid advertising is any advertising that one pays for. It is always placed with a third party, such as a TV channel, radio station, newspaper, etc. Owned advertising is advertising placed by public bodies on their own websites and social media channels. Both paid and owned advertising are subject to this new provision. At least 20% of all yearly advertising shall be in the Irish language. At least 5% of yearly advertising spend shall be in the Irish language and published on Irish language media. And again, Irish language media equals 50% or more media content through Irish. So what falls under these provisions? Advertising by public bodies in the following contexts: television, VOD, video on demand, cinema, radio, audio, press, outdoor, digital display. Now, VMS traffic signs are exempt. Digital native advertising or advertorials. Digital paid content. An advertisement as distinct from content that runs on owned media or owned channels. Example, a recruitment ad on own website would qualify under section 10A2B1. What doesn't fall under these provisions? Content as distinct from advertising. Digital content that runs on own media only. Press releases, brochures, newsletters, in-house magazines, blogs, paid search advertising, shares, posts and reposts of content as opposed to advertisements, reviews, influencers. Recommended approach. Each of the official languages shall be given parity of esteem in all media. For instance, similar copy lengths for TV and radio, similar sizes for print and social. In the interest of parity of esteem, it is not recommended to dub or subtitle as distinct from graphics on TV or video on demand. Advertisements placed with Irish language media will be in Irish only. Irish language media means any media in which 50% or more of the content of those media is through the Irish language, excluding advertisements. The responsibility lies with the public bodies to ensure that 20% of their annual advertising placed by the body is done through the Irish language. The responsibility lies with the public bodies to ensure that 5% of their annual general advertising budget is spent on Irish language advertising on Irish language media. The total of all expenditure, rather than the expenditure on each media channel, may be used for the purposes of the audit. Cost of production will not be considered for the purpose of the audit. Measurement. Ifigan Commissioner Tanga has consulted extensively with many government departments, as well as sectoral interests, including IAPI, the Institute of Advertising Practitioners Ireland, and its media agency members. 20% of any advertising placed, 10A1A, means 20% of owned and paid advertising as defined above. For public bodies that place their advertising through third-party media buying agencies, the standard industry measurement systems, example, ratings for TV, will apply. Using these guidelines on slides 16 and 17, the onus will be on the public body to show that it has complied with the 20% obligation. The 20% obligation does not necessarily have to be applied to each individual advertising campaign. It does have to be 20% in the round at the end of the reporting year. In order to reach the 20% target for campaigns, some bodies may give 1 in 5 copy rotation instructions to media outlets, i.e. instruction to ensure every 5th ad is randomly the Irish language version. This rotational model will be accepted as an indication of compliance. So here we have a table which pretty much breaks down what we're looking at and the metrics that we're looking to measure. 3 columns: measurement of 20%, the measurement and description, media, definition and detail. So if we look at print magazine advertising, the measurement should be copy rotation 1 in 5, or percentage of total circulation, estimates where no ABC Audit Bureau circulation exists. So circulation refers to a number of copies sold on an average day, week, or month, depending on the frequency of the publication. Radio advertising. Again, copy rotation 1 in 5, or percentage of total listenership. So the percentage of total listenership, of average listenership, the number of people who listen to a given radio station, for instance, 89,000 weekly reach on Kerry Radio. Audio advertising. Again, copy rotation 1 in 5, or total percentage, or percentage of the total impressions. I'll explain digital audio and total. I'll explain impressions in a moment. OOH, out of home or outdoor advertising. Percentage of total sites, or 1 in 5 for digital out of home advertising. That breaks down into total number of poster sites booked for a campaign. Cinema advertising, copy rotation 1 in 5, or percentage of total admissions. Again, admissions or cinema visits, those who cross the threshold to see movies. TV advertising, copy rotation 1 in 5, or percentage of total TV hours, TV rating points. Video on demand advertising, copy rotation 1 in 5, or total percentage of total impressions. Impressions are when an advertisement or other form of digital media renders on a user screen. So you may receive an email, for instance, that has a link to an advertisement. By activating that particular advertisement by pressing on the link or activating a call to action to the link, then that leaves its impression, and that is what the count will involve in this instance. Same for digital display advertising. Again, copy rotation or percentage of total impressions. And again, social media advertising on the various social media sites, copy rotation 1 in 5, or again, percentage of total impressions. Measurement metrics, the 5% spend on Irish language media. So 3 columns again. Media channel, you can distinguish between television, radio, press, online, out of home, what the annual spend on those media is, and whether the spend on Irish language accumulates to 5%. Public body reporting. So public bodies shall be asked to file electronic compliance return in relation to this requirement no later than the 10th of March 2024 in respect of 2023 advertising. Compliance will include a record of creative executions in the Irish language. The audit will be based on data from 2023. If, however, a member of the public submits a complaint to Commissioner Tanga regarding the implementation of the statutory obligation, Commissioner Tanga may undertake a compliance inquiry with that public body relating to any complaint made from the 10th of October 2022. All media with at least 50% Irish language editorial content exclusive of advertising will qualify as being Irish language media. Now, a list will evolve over time, and this one is certainly not exhaustive. Updates will be provided as they become available. In the absence of a definitive list, Commissioner Tanga has decided to pre-qualify and to let you know, or to inform you and advise you as to what we deem to be the existing channels. And again, as we say, this is not exhaustive. Television, there's TG Car, radio, there's RT Radio na Gaeltachta, Radio na Lifa, Radio Rero. Online, tuirisk.ie, nos.ie, mion.elle.ie, Mulchgale and Block. Press, Core, Untimide, Fasta and Shachten. And again, these are not exhaustive by any manner or means. So that was a presentation of our advisory notes, now the FAQs, and perhaps where the rubber hits the road or where we can get a little bit further in under the bonnet. So what is the aim of Section 10A, advertising by public bodies? Section 10A, advertising by public bodies, is a new provision in the Official Languages Amendment Act 2021, which places additional duties on public bodies in relation to communicating with the public in the state's official languages. Section 10A sets out specific obligations with regard to advertising. When will Section 10A, advertising by public bodies, come into effect? All the provisions regarding advertising by public bodies as prescribed in Section 10A will come into effect on 10th of October 2022. All public bodies prescribed under the Act will be obliged to comply with all the provisions of Section 10A from this date. Number 3. What does the 5% requirement regarding advertising by public bodies through Irish language media mean? Well, it means that 5% of any money spent advertising by the public body in any year shall be in the Irish language on Irish language media. The measurement will be based on 5% of the total annual advertising by the body under the criteria defined on slide number 10. Can production costs be included as part of the annual advertising spend with regard to the 20% and 5% requirements? No, production costs will not be considered for measuring the 5 or 20% requirements. The definition in section 10A refers to placed advertising, and therefore production costs are excluded from the definition of the provision. Number 5. How will compliance with the 20% and 5% requirements be measured by Ifig Commissioner Tanga? Well, Ifig Commissioner Tanga will provide public bodies with a reporting template that will capture the key metrics to measure compliance by public bodies with the 5% and 20% compliance requirements. The metrics concerned are detailed on slides number 16 to 18 of this presentation. They reflect metrics used by public bodies when buying advertising on various media. The reporting template will be made available to public bodies. This is a mechanism that we have yet to design and build. We are in consultation with a number of entities for so doing. It will be an online portal on the Commissioner Tanga's home site, where each of the we anticipate each of the public bodies having a particular login and password to capture or to upload the captured metrics. We hope to have a paper edit of exactly what will be required distributed to you before the end of this year, 2022. Does advertising spend need to be 20% plus 5%, or can you do 15% plus 5%? Example, 15% Irish advertisements in English language media and then 5% in the Irish language media. Yes, the 20% requirement can include the 5% spend requirement on advertising in the Irish language through Irish language media. A corporate body includes a number of schools and centres. Example, does each school submit its own data? No. A public body prescribed under the Act must provide evidence of compliance to the 20% and 5% requirements for the public body in its totality, as against the sub-entity level. Example, education and training boards responsible for reporting for all of its member schools. Non-Irish language media. If an advert is in Irish, it's placed on a non-Irish language media platform, will it still count towards the public body's 20% target? Yes. Is there a list available of Irish language media? Well, the following definition is prescribed for Irish language media in section 10A2 of the Official Languages Amendment Act 2021. Irish language media means any media where 50% or more of the content of that media is through the Irish language. No further statutory guidelines have been issued on the definition above, as prescribed in the legislation. Under the Official Languages Act 2003, section 21E, Commissioner Tanga is prescribed to advise public bodies on their obligations under the legislation. To that end, Ifig Commissioner Tanga suggested a non-exhaustive list of Irish language media to assist public bodies in meeting their obligations. The current list, as presented on slide number 20 of the attached PowerPoint slides, is subject to continual change. As this provision is implemented, other Irish language media may be added, including new, local and regional ones. When will monitoring of 10A begin? Well, public bodies will be obliged to comply with all the provisions of section 10A from the 10th of October 2022. In addition, Ifig Commissioner Tanga will require all public bodies to file an electronic compliance return concerning section 10A no later than the 10th of March 2024 regarding advertising for the previous year of 2023. The return filed by public bodies will form the basis for Ifig Commissioner Tanga to measure compliance by public bodies regarding their advertising operations during the year of 2023. Will there be any grace periods for public bodies? No. It's not within the functions or powers of Commissioner Tanga to offer a derogation to any public body from any statutory obligation in the legislation. What happens if a public body fails to comply with this provision? Well, the following procedures in the primary legislation will be followed to monitor compliance and address any non-compliance by public bodies. Investigation of a complaint made by a member of the public and monitoring of compliance by Ifing Commissioner Tanga. A statutory investigation can be initiated if required. Findings, recommendations are made in the statutory investigation report. If non-compliance persists, Commissioner Tanga can lay a report detailing the situation of non-compliance by the public body before the Houses of the Oireachtas. Who decided on the 5% and 20% requirements in Section 10A? Well, the Houses of the Oireachtas decided that these provisions should be included in the Official Languages Amendment Act 2021. Accordingly, President Michael D. Higgins signed the Official Languages Amendment Bill 2019 into law on the 22nd of December 2021. Can the 20% be a combination of paid and owned advertising? Yes, provided that the public body can show the data on the percentage or impressions reached on their owned media. Is paid and owned media subject to the 20% requirement? Yes, both paid for advertisements placed with a third party and advertisements placed on owned media do qualify. See slide number 10. Do native posts on social media fall within the confines of Section 10A? No, unless the post includes an ad. Again, see slides 10 and 11. Are boosted posts on social media considered paid advertising? Yes, if the boost forms part of any spend on advertising, it does qualify. Does informational video content produced for or generated by public bodies and embedded on owned media, website or Twitter platform, for instance, fall subject to Section 10A? No, unless it includes an ad. Can Irish language advertising be broadcast on English medium media platforms to satisfy the 20% requirement? Yes. Does the 20% requirement relate to overall organisation advertising or 20% of each advertisement? The 20% requirement relates to public bodies' overall advertising output in a particular year. Having a portion of a particular advertisement, for example, 20% in Irish, the remaining 80% in English, is not acceptable. Each of the official languages should be given parity. Example, similar copy lengths for TV and radio, similar sizes for print and social media. Whether the advertisement is in English or Irish, the language used should be of a high standard. Will outdoor advertising campaigns run on behalf of public bodies come under the scope of Section 10A? Yes. Can Irish language advertisements be broadcast consecutively with English language advertisements on English medium media platforms to satisfy the 20% requirements? Yes. Will public bodies be permitted under Section 10A to use local or regional media to meet the 20% requirement if it is the case that it doesn't use national TV or radio for advertising? Yes. Will public procurement, OGP, notices fall within the scope of Section 10A? Yes, when the notice is placed as an ad. Will public procurement on e-tenders be considered as advertising, specifically mini competitions, under frameworks not open to public view? No. Do public notices placed as an ad, example, planning notices, road traffic notices, fall within the scope of Section 10A? Yes. Planning notices and road traffic notices issued by the public will fall under the scope of subsection 10A2B, any form of communication to the public in respect of the following: recruitment of staff, legislative or policy initiatives, the purchase or sale of land or assets, provision of services, or public consultation. Does bilingual advertising meet the organisation's 20% obligation? Yes. The following caveat is important. Two separate blocks of text, one in Irish, one in English, conveying the same information in a single advertisement is acceptable. However, having a portion of one advertisement, example 20% in Irish, 80% in English, is not acceptable, and this is true for any medium. Each official language should be given parity, similar copy links for TV and radio, sizes for print and social media. Whether the advertisement is in English or Irish, the language used should be of high standard. Can 50% of the spend of an advertisement such as this be counted towards the 20% requirement? As detailed above in FAQ 27, where one portion of the ad is in Irish and the other portion of the same ad is in English, it is unacceptable and cannot be counted for the 20% requirement. Are public information campaigns, when placed as advertisements, subject to subsection 10A? Yes. In particular consideration to be given subsection 10A to be in this regard, again, as listed below. Must a full magazine published by a public body have equal amounts of text in Irish and English? No. With regard to section 10A, however, any advertising in the magazine must comply with the 20% requirement. If a public body was distributing the magazine to the general public or a class of the general public, example via mail shot, then it may be subject to section 9.3 of the current Act. Does the Act cover marketing communications such as informational, promotional emails, advertorials, news service, or product announcements? Again, refer to slides 10 and 11. Are there any contexts in which ad spend internationally falls within the confines of section 10A? Well, once a public body is prescribed under the Official Language Act, it must adhere to the provision. Section 10A doesn't distinguish between national and international spend. What are the implications for longer or multi-annual contracts that public bodies have already in place with media buying agencies, where it may prove impossible to meet the 5% and the 20% requirements? It is required that public bodies comply with the new provisions in section 10A and that all efforts in doing so are documented. As previously stated, and Commissioner Tanga does not have the functions or powers to offer a derogation to any public body from any statutory obligation in this legislation. If vacancies are advertised in Irish, does this mean that public bodies need to facilitate the recruitment application process in Irish, run case studies in Irish, and conduct the interviews in Irish? No. Unless a public body has a commitment in its language scheme which specifies it will run its recruitment operations accordingly through the medium of Irish. Language schemes are confirmed by the Minister for Tourism, Culture, Arts, Gaeltacht, Sport and Media. Language schemes will be replaced by language standards as prescribed in sections 19A to 19D of the Official Languages Amendment Act 2021. However, when implemented, language standards may place an obligation on public bodies or categories of public bodies to undertake some recruitment campaigns through the medium of Irish. Will supporting documentation relating to advertisements, but that will not include part of the advertisement seen by the public, need to be translated too? No. However, some exceptions may arise, as pointed out in previous FAQ number 34. For example, if a public body has committed to it in its language scheme, it would run some of its recruitment campaigns through the medium of Irish. In this case, candidates could have access to supporting documentation that would not appear in advertisements, but would nevertheless come under the scope of the commitment in the language scheme confirmed by the Minister for the public body. And language standards under the new Act will replace language schemes, the current obligations under Section 10 of the Official Languages Act 2003, which require public bodies to publish certain documents simultaneously in the official languages, will continue. If a public body sponsors an advertisement, for example, a poster, for a third party, does it come under the aegis of Section 10A? Yes. Poster is considered an advertisement and, in this case, involves spend by a public body. What is the distinction between an advertisement and content posts, specifically on social media? For example, an event listing for an art gallery. Slide 10 covers what falls under advertising. Slide 11 covers what falls under content, which is not considered advertising. What is digital content that runs on a public body's own media? For example, the content on a public body's website, newsletter, or social media platform that doesn't form part of an advertisement is not considered advertising. From a social content perspective, where it is organically posted on owned channels and does not contain a paid call to action button or spend behind it, but a written call to action within the post or creative, will this be deemed acceptable under the 20% requirement? The content on a public body's website, newsletter, or social media platform that doesn't form part of an advertisement is not considered advertising. As specified on slide number 11, posts and reposts of content as opposed to advertisements don't fall within the scope of the provision. However, if the call to action button leads to an ad, then it would fall under the scope of Section 10A. Are videos exempt from any form of communication with the public requirement? It would depend on whether the video in question is considered to be advertising as opposed to content, as described again on slides 10 and 11. Does Section 10A cover IVRs, interactive voice recordings, in Irish language? No. IVRs are not deemed to be advertising communication. Is it 20% of the audience reached or 20% of the media spend for the purpose of measuring the obligation under Section 10A? The metrics for measuring compliance with the 20% are set out on slides 16 to 18, according to the different media channels. Will an additional budget be supplied to public bodies for translation costs arising as a result of Section 10A? This matter does not fall within the scope of this legislation, so no. The geographic jurisdiction that our public body is responsible for doesn't include a Gaeltacht region. Is our public body obliged to comply with the 5 and 10 and 20% targets? Yes, all public bodies are obliged to comply with the provisions prescribed in Section 10A. What is the function of an Commissioner Tanga with respect to advising public bodies on Section 10A? Well, again, Section 21E of the Official Languages Act 2003 prescribes it as a function of an Commissioner Tanga to provide, as he or she considers appropriate, advice or other assistance to public bodies regarding their obligations under this Act. What are the functions of a Commissioner Tanga with respect to ensuring compliance of public bodies with Section 10A? Well, Section 21A, B and C of the Official Languages Act 2003 prescribes the following functions of a Commissioner Tanga. 21A, to monitor compliance by public bodies with the provisions of this Act. 21B, take all necessary measures within his or her authority to ensure compliance by public bodies with the provisions of this Act. 21C, to carry out investigations, whether on his or her own initiative, on request by the Minister, or pursuant to a complaint made to him or her by any person, into any failure by a public body to comply with the provisions of this Act that he or she, or as appropriate the Minister, considers may have occurred. If, within a reasonable time after a report containing recommendations is submitted to a public body under subsection 2, any recommendations contained in the report have not, in the opinion of the Commissioner, been implemented by the body, the Commissioner may, after considering any responses made to him or her by the public body in respect of those recommendations, make a report thereon to each House of the Oireachtas. And there you go. Presentation and FAQs. I'm hoping that this has been helpful, but if there are still any questions that you may have, we continually welcome any engagement with you. We can take it in ordinary mail on Spidale Kunta Nagalipe H91 VK23, or preferably via email, oldest@commissioner.ie. Thank you for your time.